Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Another mass shooting in America, bringing up many of the same fears and questions. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight, an 11th person has died from Saturday's shooting at a dance studio in the Los Angeles area. The suspect is dead, and investigators are still looking into his motive. Mike Valerio has more from Monterey Park.
Well, the LA County Coroner's Office has identified at least 2 of the victims, saying they were both women in their 60s. We still have 8 more people who are left to be identified, and we still do not know what drove the suspect to open fire.
Investigators are searching for a motive for the mass shooting in Monterey Park, California, Saturday night after the suspect was found dead.
He is a 72-year-old male Asian. I can confirm that there are no outstanding suspects.
The sheriff says the suspect shot himself in his van during a standoff hours after he allegedly killed 10 people and wounded 10 others in Southern California. The attack devastating the majority Asian American community on the eve of its Lunar New Year celebration.
It's just a very joyous time of year for families to get together and to have a tragedy such as this happen on the eve of the Lunar New Year is just incredibly sad and tragic.
3 people who knew him told CNN he used to be a regular at the Star Ballroom dance studio and even met his ex-wife there. Shortly after the attack in Monterey Park, authorities say the same suspect went to a second studio in nearby Alhambra, but people there were able to disarm him before he fled.
Finally, at one point, I was able to pull the gun away from him, shove him aside, create some distance, point the gun at him, intimidate him, shot him and say, "Get the hell out of here. I'll shoot. Get away. Go."
Now, the suspect here wasn't just a regular at the ballroom. He, as far back as 20 years ago, taught dance classes for free, and that, we're told, is how he met his ex-wife way back in the early 2000s. We are expecting to learn the identities of the other 8 victims by this afternoon. That's latest reporting here in Monterey Park, California. I'm Mike Valerio. Back to you.
And Governor Gavin Newsom is in Monterey Park visiting the crime scene and meeting with leaders. Today, he said while California has stronger gun control laws than most states, it is still not enough to stop mass shootings. He is calling on the federal government to restrict assault weapons and large-capacity magazines.
These just weapons of pure mass destruction. And the fact that that is not being addressed in this country is comical. It's disgraceful. It's offensive to the senses, to common sense, to dignity.
The massacre was the nation's 5th mass killing this month. It was also the deadliest attack since last May, when 21 people were killed in an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. The tragedy in Monterey Park hits home for a pair of dance studio owners here in San Diego. They used to teach at the Star Ballroom, where the shooting happened. KPBS's Alexander Nguyen has that part of the story.
I think at some point all the ballroom teachers taught there.
Vitaly Tarasov co-owns the Step 2 dance studio off Miramar Road. He recalls how warm and welcoming the owners were when he first moved to California.
We didn't know back then when we moved, we didn't know many places where we could come and teach, and the students were from different areas. So we're happy to find those where people can be acceptable of new people.
The manager of the studio, Mingwei Ma, was one of the 11 victims killed in the shooting. Tarasov says the dance community is still shaken by the senseless shooting.
I think it's a tragedy on many levels. It was a place where people went to celebrate their holiday. It's a place where people come and socialize. They come to do what they love. They come to dance. It should not be associated with any harm.
Tarasov's partner, Olga Ginsburg, was judging the California Chic Classic Dance Competition in Orange County Saturday night, where Star Ballroom's owner, Maria Liang, and her teachers were there with their students. They weren't at the Star Ballroom when the shooting happened.
And I was really in shock because I could not understand and I could not believe that this is actually happening. And I feel so bad for the teachers, for the students, for the owners.
Ginsburg has talked to some of those teachers since the tragedy and says they are fearful and devastated by what happened in their own home.
Because our dance studio, it's a home, second home for our students. And obviously for them to come home and feel fear that something can happen, this is super sad.
Alexander Wen, KPBS News.
Overdose is the leading cause of accidental death in San Diego County, but it doesn't have to be. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer has more on the effort to get a life-saving medication to those who need it.
Naloxone, commonly known as Narcan, is a medication that quickly reverses the effects of an opioid overdose. A new program aims to get the treatment distributed to more people in places in San Diego County.
We've seen too many parents who are not even aware that their child is using drugs wake up to find their teenager has died. We see instances where people who use drugs in a group and one or more of them overdose. These are all cases where naloxone could have made a difference.
The Sheriff's Department is partnering with other agencies to make naloxone more accessible where overdoses might occur.
And so we're going to partner with nonprofits, we're going to partner with law enforcement, we're going to partner with restaurants and bars, we'll partner with anybody, with schools, everyone else to make sure that we make it widely available and accessible.
Nathan Smitty thinks the expanded effort is a great idea. He works with A New Path, a nonprofit focused on drug addiction and treatment. Smitty is also known as Narcan Nate because he's been handing out the medication to high-risk homeless individuals for years and teaching people how to use it.
So you just lay the person flat on their back, tilt their head back at a 45-degree angle. You stick the tip right here into their nose as far as you can, and then you press the plunger there, and that's one dose administered.
He says it's not just the homeless population who need Narcan. He hopes the sheriff's new effort reduces the stigma around the nasal spray.
Some people like to think that naloxone is enabling people that use drugs, and that's just not the case. You know, people can't get better if they're dead. They can't work on themselves. They can't seek mental health services. They can't seek treatment.
Smitty says the education component of the new distribution program is key, as it will teach people how to properly use the Narcan nasal spray and save lives. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
After nearly 3 years, San Diego City leaders want to end the COVID-19 emergency declaration, and that would happen on February 28th. And that's not all. In a released statement, Mayor Todd Gloria and other city leaders say we will also sunset our vaccine mandate for city employees due to a decrease in COVID-19 positive cases and hospitalizations, and 91% of city employees having been vaccinated. The city council will take up the proposals at tomorrow's meeting. Things could be changing on the federal level, too. The FDA is weighing a major shift in its strategy to administer COVID-19 vaccines. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration wants to simplify the COVID-19 vaccine process to mirror that of the flu vaccine.
I certainly can't say that patients are very confused and have been, I think, even from the start. What does full vaccination mean? What's part of your regular cycle? What's a booster?
The FDA says it expects to assess circulating strains of the virus that causes COVID-19 at least annually and decide in June which strains to select for the fall season, much like the process to update flu vaccines.
Messaging that is more simple of when you should get your next shot, essentially, I think will be helpful for those people who do have the intention to stay immunized and on top of their vaccines.
Moving forward, most people may need only one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine to restore protection, regardless of how many shots they've already received. 2 doses may be needed for people who are very young and haven't been exposed, or for elderly or immune compromised. The FDA saying this simplification of vaccine composition should reduce complexity, decrease vaccine administration errors due to the complexity of a number of different vial presentations, and potentially increase vaccine compliance by allowing clear communication.
The more immunity you have to something before you face that something, the better you're going to do when you come across it.
Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
For the first time in months, passengers will soon be able to ride the train from San Diego to Orange County, at least on the weekends. Today, the Orange County Transportation Authority announced that railroad tracks in San Clemente impacted by coastal erosion are safe for limited passenger service. Amtrak Pacific Surfliner service will be restored the weekend of February 4th and 5th. Railroad stabilization work is expected to be completed in mid-March. The time is now for those who like to get their taxes done as soon as possible. Monday marked the start of the filing season. Even so, the IRS is reminding people that refunds might not be as generous this year, and that's because some incentives have expired. Parents and low-income earners might be affected with change to the child tax credit, earned income tax credit, and the child and dependent care credit.
So what happened last year was because individuals had children, they were able to get more money from the federal government, which gave them a larger refund. But that's not taking place this year.
The rise in local and state minimum wage laws might also affect refund amounts for lower income tax filers. The deadline to submit your return this year is April 18th. San Diego gas and electric customers are opening surprisingly high utility bills this month. Natural gas rates are more than double what they were a year ago, and electricity costs are up too. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says there is plenty of financial pain to go around.
Michelle Bales has lived just east of downtown San Diego in the same South Park apartment for nearly 20 years.
It's cozy, it's warm, I really like it. It's close to work as well, which is a huge plus.
But her 650 square foot home has been anything but warm recently as Bales braces for a big San Diego gas and electric bill. She's already changing her daily routines.
I try not to use the gas heater. I obviously have to cook. I try not to turn on all the lights. Sometimes I'll sit here at night with candles and just the TV, just to not rack up the fees.
Bales spent half of the past month house sitting elsewhere, and her January bill still topped $100. She only paid about $60 in November. Bales is able to make on-time payments, but many San Diego gas and electric customers are not.
We have about 3.7 million customers. Of that, approximately 341,000, or 25%, are at some level behind on their bill.
San Diego Gas and Electric's Anthony Wagner says delinquencies are counted as people who are at least 30 days behind in their bills. Most are more than 60 days late. It's a surprisingly large number.
5 years ago, the numbers are more like 10, 15% that were behind. 25% clearly suggests that the cost of home energy is becoming unaffordable for many families. And the programs we have in place are not sufficient to help them pay these bills.
In fact, about a third of San Diego Gas and Electric's customers are already enrolled in a rate assistance program. The two biggest are the California Alternative Rates for Energy and the Family Electric Rate Assistance Program. Both offer rate reductions based on family income. But San Diego Gas and Electric still has about $200 million in delinquent customer debt.
The dilemma here is that utilities go to the front of the line because they can shut you off for power, lose access to internet, access to air conditioning or heating. And so it places a very significant burden on families where when prices go up for food, you can substitute, one item for another. You can stretch your food budget out. There are things you can do where you have more control over it.
Power shutoffs haven't happened in SDG&E's service area since March of 2020. But the statewide COVID prohibition on disconnections expired in 2021. SDG&E hasn't cut off power for overdue bills since 2020, but company spokesman Anthony Wagner says that will likely change this year. He says the utility needs to start collecting that $200 million from customers with past due bills. He's also quick to say that customers who are struggling have options.
As long as you're in communication with us and you have a strategy with the utility on how to pay off your arrearage, you're not going to get yourself disconnected. But you have to be in communication with us.
Wagner says the astronomically high gas bill should begin falling next month when temperatures climb, demand fades, and gas rates are reset. And that's welcome news for Krasna Svoboda. She lives in an oceanside apartment, and the high bills have her making tough budgetary choices.
I'm an old person, and I'm on a fixed income, and so there isn't going to be any more money than there is, and I need to budget it every month. So things that vary from month to month significantly impact me more, perhaps, than people who are still in the increased earnings years.
Even customers who are not struggling financially may end up feeling the fiscal pain. If San Diego Gas and Electric can't collect an outstanding debt, the utility will roll that debt into electricity and natural gas rates. That raises utility prices and keeps pressure on customers who are already struggling. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
A lot of people to our north are trying to sort out which repair bills will be covered by insurance and which ones will be out of pocket. State data from 2021 shows just 250,000 homes and other buildings in our state have a dedicated flood insurance policy. The community of Acampo, between Sacramento and Stockton, was among those recently flooded.
Flood insurance, I kind of thought that was covered with the property. You know, because I had stuff before in the back where I had a big 80-foot cedar tree fall, just missed my trailer, took out my deck. That was covered from the storm. So I figured, well, it's from the storm, maybe it should be covered. So I never really thought about it.
Many policies are part of FEMA flood insurance coverage. However, insurance experts say that FEMA flood zone maps are not necessarily a predictor for flood risk. The San Diego environmental group Wild Coast will soon string a permanent trash net across part of the Tijuana River to catch plastic waste. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge says this will be the second one that they've done.
The hills of Tijuana are home to many neighborhoods with many unpermitted homes. A lot of them don't have trash collection service, and Faye Crevichet of Wild Coast says that explains the problem in the Tijuana River estuary.
They don't have the resources, enough trucks to pick up the trash. And so people, what would you do if nobody picks up the trash? So they put it in plastic bags and they walk to the bus stop and they leave it there and they leave it all over the place.
The Tijuana River estuary is a bundle of tributaries which carry that trash that comes off the streets and into the valley when it rains. Wild Coast already catches trash in Mexico on one of those tributaries with what they call a trash boom. She says 93% of the waste they catch is plastic and tires.
We sort it, we weigh it, so now we're creating real data. And we're trying to reuse as much as possible and recycle the rest.
Now, with help from the Benioff Foundation and the San Diego Foundation, they are building another trash boom.
We're going to build it in another of the tributaries of the Tijuana River called Camino Verde,
which is also a Tijuana neighborhood whose waste is washed into the river. We visited the estuary on a day that followed weeks of heavy rain, making for washed-out roads and a valley teeming with trash as well as sewage. Does Crevichet think the job they are doing is overwhelming? She's not lost hope, but she wants some help.
We have to start doing something. It's not a time to people say, oh, so people get conscious of the problem. No. People need to start acting. Don't buy more plastic. Don't wrap your food in plastic in your fridge. Put a plate on it. I mean, really, it's a fridge.
She says the new trash boom needs to be permitted, and it will be built later in the year. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Thanks for tuning in. We have a lot to talk about, so let's start you off with your weather headlines. High winds. It's going to be blustery today. That's going to lead to concerns like power outages, blowing dust, and dangerous crosswinds. So for high-profile vehicles, take it easy on the roads. Any vehicles, that blowing dust is going to be a top concern. As those winds pick up, we can experience some reduced visibility, so take it easy, take it slow if you are going to be traveling. And overall, we are going to be running cooler throughout throughout the state of California, and these high winds are going to persist. So we are dealing with a Santa Ana wind event. This is Monday evening through Tuesday afternoon through Southern California, especially the interior portion of the state. That's where we're expecting 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts extending through to southern Nevada. And these few isolated pockets with this darker purple, especially right through the I-15 corridor between Hesperia and San Bernardino, that's where we could see winds over 50 miles per hour with your AccuWeather local storm max upwards to 80 miles per hour. So it is going to be blustery even through Tuesday afternoon. We do have these wind alerts in effect through Riverside County, even into San Bernardino County. Again, we do have high wind warnings in effect through this afternoon. Same story with those wind advisories in that lighter purple through Riverside County. Now tonight, we are going to be dropping down to a low of 41, clear but chilly. And we're just going to be making it into the 60s along the coast for tomorrow. For San Diego's forecast at 64. If we take our eye a little bit further east towards Mount Laguna in the 40s. And then Campo at 59 and Borrego Springs at 64. Now, gusty winds again are going to persist through Thursday across Southern California. Along the coast, we're going to be staying in the 60s, sunny and dry, but again, windy through the middle of the week. Similar story more inland, even topping off at 70 for your Wednesday. The mountains, though, chilly, cooling off to the 30s for Thursday, but back up to the 40s by Friday. And it is going to be windy even closer to the deserts, but staying in the 60s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
For the past 2 weeks, St. Peter's Church in Del Mar has been home to people who don't have a place to live. KPBS reporter Claire Strong went to find out how the program's been going so far.
It has been a wonderful 2 weeks. We've come together as a congregation to provide a warm bed and a hot meal to individuals who are housing insecure.
For the last 14 days, St. Peter's Church has been home to people who don't have a regular roof over their head. They've been able to enjoy some stability, security and support as part of the Interfaith Shelter Network rotational program, which involves different religious groups from across San Diego taking turns to host homeless guests.
They're not different from you and I, and circumstances have been such that they are here, and I just love listening to their experiences.
After being homeless for 10 years, it's been really tough because there's no one that's really helped.
KPBS News first met Charles Seiler when he arrived at St. Peter's 2 weeks ago, with all his worldly belongings packed into a few boxes and bags. With nowhere to live, Charles often sleeps in his car.
There have been several times, and I can only say like a handful of times, where someone's tried to help, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't make enough to establish myself.
The number of guests was lower than initially predicted. Volunteers think it's mostly due to the new COVID vaccine requirements. But Interfaith says calls to the organisation have increased from a few per day to around 20 per day in the last couple weeks. And there have already been some success stories too. Out of the 4 guests at St. Peter's, 1 has just landed a job and another has been reunited with their children. The focus is now on relocating them to the next location, St. James's Catholic Church in Solana Beach, where 2 more families will be joining them.
We will move anyone who doesn't have a car. We will move all of their stuff. We will move anyone who doesn't have a car. We will move all of their stuff for them, their belongings, and for those that have a car, they'll be responsible for their own stuff.
Charles eventually hopes to find a job, somewhere to live, and to start a family of his own. But for now, he and the other guests are just grateful for somewhere safe to stay at night. Claire Strong, KPBS News.
Since the start of the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline launched over the summer, it has seen a significant rise in call volume. As Mandy Gaither reports, some believe it's already transforming the crisis care system.
In 6 months, 3 numbers have connected millions of people to more than 200 call centers, the majority being answered in under a minute.
The average speed to answer year over year was about 3 minutes in 2021. It's now 44 seconds in December of 2022.
Since the transition to the easier to remember 988, more than 300,000 calls, texts, and chats have come in each month. The latest data shows calls answered increased by 48%, comparing December 2022 to the same month in 2021. Chats answered also increased by 263%, and texts answered increased by more than 1,400%.
There's been tremendous national dialogue, conversation, discussion about 988, about suicidal crises, mental health crises.
Health experts believe that's helped to reduce stigma and encouraged people to seek help. The Lifeline has also seen a lot of demand for a pilot program being tested that's aimed at the LGBTQ+ community, where youth have the option of being connected with counselors specially trained in inclusive crisis care.
Good morning, 988. How can I help you? There has been a lot of demand and a lot of utilization of that service, which really speaks to what we've known all along, that there is a huge need in that population for access to care.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the latest from Monterey Park, California, where police are investigating the deadly Lunar New Year shooting. Coming up at 7 right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Hollywood will be up early tomorrow morning to announce the Oscar nominees. NPR's Morning Edition will tell us about this year's contenders. And 100 seasons of Aztec football. We'll hear from the author behind the new coffee table book documenting part of SDSU's athletic history. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.